My parents lived in Guilford in a half-timbered, Tudor-style house with leaded glass windows. Out front was this really jarring piece of modern sculpture, a giant lucite triangle balanced upside down on a pole. My mother went after culture with a vengeance. I showed up for dinner late, hoping my brother had gotten there first, but no such luck. My father opened the door. "Happy birthday, son," he told me. "Well, thanks." That about wrapped it up. We had nothing further to talk about. As we crossed the hall, Dad sent a desperate glance toward the landing. "Margot," he called, "Barnaby's here. Aren't you coming down?" In the living room, over the mantel, hung more of my mother's culture. A barn door. It could have been, taken off its hinges and framed in aluminum strips. We heard my mother's footsteps on the stairs. "Happy birthday!" she cried, hurrying in with her arms outstretched. She had dressed up, but in that offhand way that Guilford women do it. A-line skirt, tailored silk shirt, navy leather flats with acorns tied to the toes. Her one mistake was her hair. She dyed her hair dead black and wore it sleeked into a tight French roll. It made her look white-faced and witchy. She laid an envelope in my hand. "Your birthday present." "Well, thanks. Maybe you can find yourself some decent clothes." "Maybe so," I said, not troubling to argue. I folded the envelope in two and slid it into my jeans pocket. I didn't need to look to know it was a gift certificate from some menswear store or other, someplace Ivy League and expensive. "Thanks to you too, Dad. So, are Graham and Pop-Pop coming?" Which was purely to annoy her, because I already knew the answer. "No, they're not," she told me, brazening it out. "But your brother is, of course. And I invited Len Parrish, too. He's stopping by for birthday cake after. He couldn't make it for dinner." Len was one of those boyhood friends mothers always love. He had gone on to big doings and left me far behind. I said, "Well, I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you." The doorbell rang. "Oh, Jeff," my mother said. Dad and I exchanged relieved grins. Not only was my brother a better conversationalist, he had a wife who would help to dilute the atmosphere. "Happy birthday," Wiki told me, kissing the air beside my left cheek. She and Jeff made a model couple. Wiki, attractive in clothes that were twins to my mother's. Jeff, dark and square-set and handsome. He worked at the foundation with Dad. Dad was taking drink orders. I went over to the fireplace and considered the barn door a while. Then I drifted into my father's study. There was the ledger containing great-granddad's epic poem, and, next to that, his son's contribution, done up to look like a ledger, too. Same gray cloth, same maroon leather corners. "Light of Heaven" was the title. From the sound of it, grandfather had been visited by one of creation's dullest angels, a sweet-faced young secretary who arrived for a job interview at a perilous moment in his personal life and instructed him to appreciate his wife and children, after which she vanished. Reading between the lines, I always assumed that what we had here was an instance of attempted sexual harassment in the workplace, but that could have been wishful thinking. I was so eager for some sign of colorfulness in my family. A possible paranormal experience. My father's contribution described the woman who stopped him in Howard Street and asked him for a match. While he was explaining that he didn't smoke, the police arrested a gunman who'd been lurking around the next corner. I sat there at my birthday dinner, going through the motions. "Great, you made the potato dish," that sort of thing. "Please pass the rolls." Mom had to tell her story about the New Year baby that wasn't, how I had all but promised to be the very first birth of the year, Name in the papers, free diaper service, 6-month supply of strained spinach. But then, of course, had loafed about and shown up 3 weeks late. And that got Wiki started on their punctual-to-the-minute JP, not to imply there was a speedy birth. Wonderful, the difficult delivery story. The rest of us were excused for a quarter of an hour. At the end of the meal, Mom brought in the cake, chocolate icing, and a blaze of candles. "I won't serve the cake just yet," she said. "We'll wait for Len." I blew out all the candles in one breath. Then I said, "Haven't we been through this before?" "Through what before?" Mom asked. "Waiting for a wonder boy and he never showed?" "I don't know why you always take that tone about him," Mom said. "You used to be inseparable once upon a time. I believe you're jealous of his success." Here's what's funny. Len Parrish went along with me on every teenage stunt I ever pulled. He was with me the night I got caught, in fact, but he wasn't caught himself, and I never breathed a word to the police. I didn't blame Len. I'd have done the same in his place. But it irked me that my mother thought he was such a winner. "Success?" I asked. "You call it a success? Selling off fake plantation houses on streets called Foxhound Footway and Stirrup Cup Circle? At least he wears a suit to work. At least he makes a decent living. At least he has a college degree. Did you sign up for that course?" "What course?" "That night course at the college, remember? I suggested you might sign up for it and earn a few more credits." "Oh, that," I said. "Well, did you?" "No." "Why not?" "Just never got around to it, I guess." Dad had a pinched and disapproving expression, but it would be Mom he disapproved of, not me. He couldn't abide for people to act upset, and Mom was obviously upset. She was stripping all her rings off, a very bad sign. 12 credits? She said too distinctly. 12 little college credits, and you could kiss Rollabat goodbye. "Rent-a-back," I said. "You could buy yourself a decent suit and go to work for your father." "Now, Margot," my father said, "if college were all that stood in his way, I'd dream something up for him to do tomorrow. Maybe he'd rather work elsewhere. Have you considered that?" "Of course he'd rather work elsewhere," my mother cried. "Are you blind? He's spitting in your face. He's spitting in the Foundation's face. He has deliberately chosen employment that has no lasting point to it, no reputation, no future, in preference to work that's of permanent significance." I said, "I'll tell you what's really bothering you. You think a thing is worthwhile only if it makes the headlines. Prominent philanthropist donates $500,000. You think it's a waste of time just to carry some lady's trash out for her." "Yes, I do," Mom said. "And it's a waste of money, too. Our money." Well, I knew we'd get around to that sooner or later. "Our $8,700, she said, "that you have never paid us back a cent of because you earn barely a subsistence wage at that so-called job of yours." "Margot," my father said, "he doesn't have to pay us back." "Of course he has to pay us back. It isn't your average household expense, buying off your son's burglary victims." "He is not required to pay us back, and you are behaving abominably," my father said. The silence was that sharp-edged kind that follows gunshots. My mother sat very straight-backed in her chair. It was a lot more obvious now that she was just a Polish girl from Canton, scared to death Jeffrey Gatlin might find her common. $8,700. It never failed to come up at some point. The waste of it, the fruitlessness, the niggling dribs and drabs handed out to neighbors. $60 for a ballerina music box I'd thrown down a storm drain in a moment of panic. $9,450 to mend the lock in a cabinet door. The most expensive item was an ivory carving of a tiny, naked Chinese man and woman getting extremely familiar with each other. I broke it when I stuffed it between my mattress and box spring. Mr. McLeod said it was priceless, but settled for $600, grumbling. You'd have thought he'd be embarrassed to claim ownership. It wasn't only the reparation money. Get Mom wound up, and she would toss in the tuition at Renaissance besides. As Dad pointed out, they'd have paid for my schooling in any case, but Mom said, "Not a school like Renaissance, though, with its 4-to-1 student-teacher ratio and its trained psychologists." Unfortunate name, Renaissance. Nobody got reborn there, believe me. The aim stated on the school's letterhead was guiding the gifted young tester of limits. But what they should have said was stashing away your rich juvenile delinquent. The only thing special about the place was they kept us 12 months a year. No awkward summer vacations to inconvenience our families. Every time we cursed, we had to memorize a Shakespeare sonnet. Boy, that'll clean your language up in a hurry. Not to mention instilling a permanent dislike of Shakespeare. I remember this one sonnet I learned the first week I was at Renaissance. It started out, "When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes." I thought it was me he was talking about. I swear, it just about tore me apart the moment I saw those words on the page. Well, as I said, it was my first week. And anyhow, the guy went on to say, "Haply I think on thee," which was certainly not about me. I didn't have any thee in my life. No way. I wondered how my family would react if I ever paid that $8,700 back. How my mother would react, to be specific. Sometimes I thought if I could just show her, just once and for all show her, I would be free of her. When I reached my apartment, I punched a button on my answering machine. Mrs. Dibble. Tomorrow I should meet with a brand-new client, a Mrs. Glynn. "It was her niece who made the request," she said. "She told me you two had talked on the train. She says her aunt will need hours and hours. That was her exact phrase. She wants you to come to her aunt's house tomorrow evening." I lifted the flap on Mom's envelope and peered inside. Whoa, not a gift certificate, but cash. $100. I stood weighing them in my hand. Let's say I made $100 extra every week. Say I lined up this aunt of Sophia's with her hours and hours of chores. Say I stopped dodging the clients I didn't care for, the assignments I didn't find convenient, and added a clear $100 to my weekly income. 87 weeks, 86 with the birthday money, 85 and 84 if we could count next birthday and next Christmas, too. I would hand it to Mom in cold cash. 87 crisp new $100 bills. Everybody else's angel had delivered a single message, and let it go at that. Wouldn't you know, though, my angel seemed to be more of the nagging kind.